I've known them both for a very long time.
Okay, well, hello, everyone. This is Terry Kimker, Chair of the HPC, and welcome to our first meeting of the year 2021. It's January 11th, 2021. The Heritage Preservation Commission reviews applications for projects at heritage sites within the heritage districts of the city. And the commission also serves as an advisory body to the mayor and council on municipal heritage preservation matters for the city of St. Paul. So during this meeting, please mute your microphones except when recognized by the chair to speak. All the documentation utilized for this meeting has been made available on the commission website at www.stpaul.gov/HPC. After being recognized by the chair, commissioner staff will need to state their name before speaking, and members of the public will need to state their name and address before speaking. All deliberation and voting will be done via a roll call conducted by the chair, and staff will be monitoring microphones and muting participants as necessary. So our first item of business is a roll call. Steve George, Commissioner George.
Here.
Thank you. Welcome. Commissioner
Thank
Bazette,
you.
I know that you're here. Commissioner Douglas. No. Commissioner Lupke. Commissioner Wagner. Commissioner Proka.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
Here.
Welcome. Commissioner McDonald, you are here, right?
Here.
And okay, let me go back to, let's see, Commissioner Douglas. And Commissioner Lupke. Okay. So then we move to
Chair. Commissioner Douglas has just, I believe, just joined us.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Commissioner Douglas. Our next item of business is adoption of the agenda. Can I have a motion and a second for adoption of the agenda?
Chair, this is Commissioner Bazat, so move.
Thank you.
Commissioner George, second.
Thank you. Okay, so there's been some concern about making sure we get an accurate record for our minutes of these meetings. So in the past, I've just sort of asked for any objections, but I'm going to go through the whole roll and get an affirmative or negative on adoption of the agenda. So, and I'll be doing that for all the different things that we go through today. So, so Commissioner George.
Yes.
Commissioner Bazat.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas. Commissioner Douglas, I can see you here.
Her microphone appears to be muted.
Yeah. Commissioner Douglas is here.
Oh, now can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Wagner. Oops, he's not here, right? Commissioner Perotka.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
And Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Okay, the agenda is adopted. Next, I'll run through the list for conflicts of interest. Commissioner George.
None.
Commissioner Bazat.
None.
Commissioner Douglas.
None.
Commissioner Perotka.
No conflicts, none.
Commissioner Nelson.
No.
Commissioner McDonald,
None.
and none for me either. Then we have a set of minutes for our last meeting on, when was it? December 14th of 2020. Are there any major edits needed on the submitted minutes? Commissioner George,
None that I know of.
Commissioner Bazat,
None.
Commissioner Douglas,
None.
Commissioner Peroka,
None.
Commissioner Nelson,
No.
and Commissioner McDonald.
None.
Thank you. And then can I have a motion and a second for approval of the minutes?
Chair, this is Commissioner Bazat. I move approval of the minutes of the HPC for December 14, 2020.
Thank you. Second, anyone?
This is Commissioner George, second the minutes,
Thank you.
the motion.
So the motion's for the approval of the minutes, Commissioner George,
Yes,
Commissioner Bazat,
Sorry. Yes.
yes, okay, you, I see your
One,
hand up.
one would assume that the maker of the motion,
Well,
unless
yeah,
there have been amendments, but I get it.
Commissioner Douglas,
Excuse me. Yes, I approve.
thank you. Commissioner Peroka,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
thank you, and Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Okay, so our first item of business today is the, now my thing's cut off here. Is it 860 Laurel Avenue, the Woodland Park Baptist Church, CLG National Register nomination comment? And is that George, is that yours? Or is that Christine?
It's Christine's. Christine, are you on? I think she might be having some trouble.
Hmm.
There she
Oh,
is.
there she is.
You're muted.
Hi.
Hi, Christine.
Hi. Sorry, I was in a voice totem town meeting there.
We had just moved to the first item of business, which is the 860 Laurel Avenue, Woodland Park Baptist Church, CLG National Register nomination.
Okay.
Are you ready to do that, or do you need to?
I'm sorry, I have to pull that up. I didn't, lost track of time here. I apologize. Let me get to that. Let me pull up my memo.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you for being patient with me.
No problem.
So the 860 Laurel Avenue, that is the Woodland Park Baptist Church. It is nominated for its under architectural criteria. I'm guessing that you have a copy of the memo in front of you. Then, were there any specific questions about the memo?
Chair? Through the chair to Ms. Booler.
Yes, so again, what we're going to do going forward now is kind of just go through the role again, And if you have questions, then we'll do it. And we'll just keep going until we'll keep going through the roll until the questions are.
I apologize. I didn't know that's how you wanted to.
No,
do
I
it.
understand.
Sorry, I'll back off. Boom,
No,
muting.
It's fine. This is new. I understand. So Commissioner George, do you have any questions for the staff at this point?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Bazat, do you have a question for staff?
Well, I had some comments that I forwarded to staff in terms of some corrections that might be appropriate. Were those received and will those be changed? There's like 6 of them in the memo itself. Shall I resend the those comments?
Commissioner Bazat, Chair, we did receive your comments in an email, and those can be incorporated into the memo. Thank you for the keen eye with your editing.
Yes, sorry. As I say, I'm channeling former Commissioner Ferguson on this stuff. Seriously, for the rest of the commissioners, it just has to do with changing things to maintain the sense of sentences and insert things like the first sentence, Woodland Park Baptist Church, etc. is, and then insert is a neighborhood church, and then include at the end of that sentence portion of the Summit University neighborhood then known as Woodland Park. It helps explain the name, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Bazat. Do you have any other further questions or staff at this point?
Well, I have what I think might be an appropriate correction to the actual nomination form. On page 7, I think, don't help me. Page 9, excuse me, of the nomination form, going by the pagination on the PDF. Or no, excuse me, it is page 8. It's in the summary paragraph. The first sentence reads that it was constructed in the early years of residential development in the area west of St. Paul. And like that'd be Minneapolis. So I think the author would benefit from adding west of either the central business district or west of downtown St. Paul. However, it would be more appropriately phrased. But, 20 years from now, when somebody is reading this, as I have to go back frequently to National Register nomination forms, that in itself could be confusing. So that's one that I would recommend. And to staff, Ms. Boulware, I don't know if those kinds of things are incorporated into the comments for SHPO, but at any rate.
That is something where in the letter that is sent to SHPO with the HPC's recommendation, that can be included just for clarification. I actually interpreted that as when they were talking about the neighborhood or the establishment of the neighborhood, noting that it's west of Western Avenue, which used to be the city boundary, maybe when that was established, but I can see how there would be some confusion with that.
I don't know. I think I'd clarify, and I think the city boundary was west of Western when this building was built, 1907, definitely west of Western. Yes. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Douglas, do you have any questions for staff at this point?
No, I don't have questions at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald?
I'm curious if the congregation initiated the National Register application process.
Unlike the other nomination you'll be reviewing, I could not tell from this one who actually initiated this. I will note that one block away a few years ago, there was another church that was demolished to become new construction for a daycare center. So I'm wondering if there was any impact from that, but I can't verify that.
Okay, my concern is, are the owners on board with the nomination?
Commissioner McDonald, unfortunately, that's something that I do not know.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Nelson, do you have any questions for staff at this point?
I think I have just one,
Yeah.
which is Christine. If you know, golly, we have many old churches in St. Paul that some would think should have some sort of designation or protection. But I wonder, does this one compare particularly to any others that you know of?
Well, in reading this, it being just an architectural nomination, they really hang their hat on the uniqueness of this Akron plan. I can maybe speak to, similar neighborhood churches that are brick with stone detail, but I haven't been in many of these churches. So where this nomination is really highlighting an interior plan and the integrity of that space, I can't really compare. So that's kind of the difficulty of some of these nominations where there's interior integrity and especially being called out into this nomination.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you. Commissioner Peroka, do you have any questions for staff at this point?
I don't have any questions for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do have just one, I guess it's more of a clarification, and that is in that the way it's stated that, and I don't have it right before me, so I'm doing this from memory, the criterion consideration A, it's stated that it's it's because it's a religious building, but I think the more accurate way to state that is that it's that the way that criterion is actually stated is that it's a religious building that has independent architectural or artistic significance. Isn't that right?
Yes, it is. I was copying from the criterion consideration that was noted in the application, but I can make that a better sounding sentence per your recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, may I interrupt? This is Commissioner Bazat.
Yes.
I believe that the only other for sure Akron plan church in St. Paul is Central Presbyterian downtown.
Okay. Let me just run through this one more time to make sure we don't have any other questions that cropped up. Commissioner George.
None at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bazat?
No, just to partially answer Commissioner Nelson's query.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Douglas?
No, not at this time.
Commissioner McDonald?
No further questions.
Commissioner Nelson?
No.
And Commissioner Peroka?
No questions.
So I guess we don't have an applicant here to present any testimony today. Did staff receive any written testimony or comments on this piece of business?
This is Christine. I haven't received anything. George?
No, we haven't received anything.
Okay, thank you. And I will now open the public hearing on this. If there's anybody here from the public that wishes to comment on this application. Commissioner Bazat, I see you have your hand up. Do you have a question?
I do. This is just a business feature and not a public hearing, so perhaps not necessary. I'm not sure of that, but I think it would have been labeled and notified as a public hearing.
Well, I clarified this before the meeting that we are required to accept comments from the public if there is
On any order of business?
CLG applications. Or
Thank
CLG
you.
applications.
Yeah, this is George. Our CLG contract does say that we will have a public forum, take public comment.
So with that, once again, are there any members of the public who are present who would like to speak to this nomination? Once, twice? Okay, hearing none. Then I will open it up for a motion and a second. On whether we should recommend this nomination. Chair, yes. Commissioner, oh, there you are. You have your hand up. Sorry, Commissioner Bazat, yes.
This is Commissioner Mazat. I move that the HPC support the National Register designation of the, and there's another correction, for the Woodland Park Baptist Church located at 860 Laurel Avenue as per presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff memo and at the meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that?
Commissioner Douglas, I
Commissioner
second.
George.
Thank you, Commissioner Douglas. Okay, and so for discussion on this motion, we're going to go through the same procedure, and I'm sorry if it's getting tedious, but I'm just going to go through the roll call, so we'll just have a better record for everybody as to who's speaking at what point. So I'll start with Commissioner George. Do you have any comments or thoughts you'd like to share at this point on this nomination?
No further comments at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Bazat.
I just want to say that I think it's a really thoroughly documented and well-researched nomination, and I really support it, particularly because I did do some background research on the Akron plan. I have a colleague in North Dakota who has done a ton of work on Akron plans, and so I was able to get some information about resources. This is a church building that I've not really paid much attention to, even though I'm in that neighborhood frequently. And I just want to commend the author of the nomination for some excellent work on it. So I'm happy to vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazant. Commissioner Douglas, any comments or thoughts you'd like to share at this point?
No further comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Peroka?
Yes, thank you. I also intend to vote in favor of this nomination to the National Register for designation. I think it is also an excellent example of period architecture in St. Paul that highlights some unique qualities, some original materials, and definitely deserves to be on the National Register. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Peroka. Commissioner Nelson.
I think it's terrific, and may there be many more such nominations coming our way. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald.
No further comments.
Okay. Any further comments by anybody at this point? If not, I'll call for a vote on the motion. Commissioner George.
Yes.
Commissioner Bazat.
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
Commissioner Peroka.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
And Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes. And then our next item of business is our second CLG National Register nomination for 1222 University Avenue, the St. Paul Casket Company building. And is there a staff presentation on that one?
Just a brief one. So the St. Paul Casket Company building, this is a more in-depth nomination. I'm sorry, I'm toggling between a bunch of screens here, so let me make sure I get my memo forward here. The nomination is for architecture, as well as, let me pull this up here. So it's for architecture as well as the area of industry. This building has actually come up several times and in a few different contexts. It has earlier inventory number that's maintained by the state. I believe it was first identified probably in the 1983 survey. It's also been noted in the transportation context study that was done in 2001. With a criterion A in the way of industry, it's association with events that have made a significant contribution to the broad pattern of history. This building, with the company buying property along University Avenue, really built the building for the type of business they were doing, but also in an area where there was the ability to bring in materials, ship out materials, and really be in a heart of a manufacturing area. And with the architecture and engineering, the building does embody the distinctive characteristics of that type and period. Even the interior, although it hasn't been used for the purpose that it was originally used for quite a while, 1951, the interior retains a lot of integrity and still shows signs of the way moved throughout the building. So staff is recommending that the Heritage Preservation consider supporting the nomination. And in this one, the period of significance would be from 1923, which is when the building went into operation, to 1951, when St. Paul Casket Company ceased business at the property.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bulwer.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'll ask if there's any questions for staff, and we'll go through our little routine again now. Commissioner George, do you have any questions for staff at this point?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Bazat?
Actually the same question. I submitted some comments and would ask that they be considered to be part of the memo and or the letter that gets sent to SHPO. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas?
No comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Peroka?
Yes, I do have a question. I'm wondering if there's any other buildings on University that are from or similar to the style and the period of significance.
So Commissioner Prockett, Chair. The interesting thing with this is the tower on the building, which at the time it was constructed, there were a few other buildings with towers like that within a short distance, such as the Montgomery Ward building. I believe there was another one just to the west of it that I'm losing now, but it was specifically cited there by the company because of its manufacturing office park layout and the Brown and Bigelow buildings that were surrounding it. So there at one point in time was a lot of integrity of context for that site. Since the 1950s and up through even the early 90s, some of that context is gone, but there are a few pieces still remaining. So this is really the last of the original architectural pieces in that immediate area that have that that sort of form function feature.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Chair, your microphone is muted.
Sorry, yeah. Commissioner Nelson, do you have any questions for staff at this point?
Yeah, first of all, let me say I've wondered so many times what that building is, so I was delighted to see this. Is it being used for anything now?
Commissioner Nelson, the building actually sold last year. For a while, it was used, I want to say it was landfill, books and records. Prior to that, it was Snyder. So this nomination was actually put together based on nominations that were required as mitigation for the Green Line. There were, I think, 20 something in St. Paul that were put forward. Because this building sold, the new owner of the building is planning on utilizing federal and state historic tax credits. And so it's I think it's getting breathed a new life. So I'm not sure what the plan is for it. I haven't seen it, but obviously they're looking at tax credits and getting this nomination. They probably have some good ideas of what they would like to do, especially given the location and the revitalization of the area with the Green Line, the soccer stadium, and a lot of other transit-oriented development.
Wow, that's really good news. Thank you. That's the only question I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner McDonald, do you have any questions for staff at this point?
Well, excuse me. I was going to ask again about the impetus for the nomination, and my assumption was Tax Act purposes, and that's been confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm kind of going to run through the opportunity for questions one more time. Yes, Commissioner George.
No, the information was very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bazat?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas?
Well, yes, I don't have a question, but I guess I have a comment because I'm real familiar with that neighborhood and the buildings there. And I live not too far from there, and I drive up and down University Avenue all the time. And I've always just kind of been in awe of the architecture of those buildings. And my brother used to work at Curtis 1000. I don't know if I think that was on the corner, but I think it's close to that building. He used to make toboggans. And those buildings are just very interesting, and it's wonderful to see them, you know, at least one of them being preserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Peroka, any further questions for staff at this point?
No further questions. Thank you.
And Commissioner Nelson
No,
and Commissioner McDonald.
No further questions.
Okay. Did staff receive any written comments on this nomination?
Chair, it's Christine. I did not receive any written comments. George?
I've not received anything either.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody here from the public who is interested in speaking to the commission about this potential nomination? One? Anybody? Okay, hearing none, I will close the public portion of or accepting public testimony. And I'll ask whether there's I'll ask for a motion and a second for the comments to the SHPO office on this approval of the application or nomination. Commissioner Bazat.
I move that the HPC support the National Register nomination for the St. Paul Casket Company located at 1222 University Avenue. As per presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff memo and comments from the current HPC meeting. It's a slight change from the suggested motion.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second for that motion?
Commissioner George, I second that motion.
Thank you. Okay, I will open it up then for deliberation on that motion. I'll start again with you, Commissioner George. Any?
I have nothing to say at this time. I do support it.
Thank you. Commissioner Bazat.
Not only do I support it, I've lived since 1974. I've lived in or near the Midway, and having been an architectural historian for that long, I've known what it was, but I really appreciate the thoroughness of this nomination, because having seen all the concrete falling off of the facade, for a time I had thought that it was actually a brick building that had been skimmed over with concrete. And I love it that it was built with a concrete facade all the way around. I am curious, I guess this was a question for staff, but I was also curious about whether or not that was the original color, or if it was less of a pinkish beige and more of a tan or plain concrete color, but that's neither here nor there. I also would say that I never knew that tower enclosed a water tank. So I learned a whole lot from this particular nomination, and I really appreciate that they're doing it. I love this building. So yeah, it's great.
Chair, should I respond?
Sure.
Okay. Commissioner Pizzat, there's actually, when the building opened, there was a description of it that brought forward that it had a white finish, a white color to the building. So there's speculation that the building may have been painted or actually even restuccoed at some point in time. Given the fireproof construction with all of the wood and the kiln and everything there, the railroad tracks behind, it seems from what Commissioner Douglas said that there was also toboggan manufacturing down the street. I'm guessing that at that point that it was built, that finding a way to not only have the fire suppression with the water in the tower, but also not non-flammable materials in the construction was a huge deal. So hope that answers your question.
Well, that perfectly makes sense. And also having a much lighter finish makes sense, because you had the Montgomery Ward's tower down the street, which was much, much lighter, probably originally white. So there was, and the other thing that I learned from this, that it was a reed and stem, or a reed anyway, and that's just fabulous. You go from the St. Paul Casket Company to Grand Central Station. So this was fascinating to me. And I appreciate knowing, I didn't read that article, or I missed it somehow. So knowing that that pinkish beige wasn't original makes me feel even better about the building.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazat. Commissioner Douglas, any thoughts, comments?
Well, I was just, wow, just looking at this now, I'm just very fascinated because, like I said, I grew up in this area. And I'm just wondering, was the same architect, the architect for the old Montgomery Ward's building? Because it now that I'm thinking about it, is very similar. In the old tower. I don't know. But, and then I'm just thinking, gosh, I just hate that the old Montgomery Ward's building was knocked down too, because, wow, and I know nothing lasts forever. I mean, we can't keep everything, but that just, my God, we lived there. We got everything from there. My father used to, if it didn't come from Monkey Ward's or Sears and Roebuck, we didn't get it in our house. But I don't know. I'm just rambling, but that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Douglas. Commissioner Bazat, did you want to respond to that?
Well, I just wanted to tell Commissioner Douglas, and I'm sure staff can help me with this, but I know that I know that Reed and Stem didn't do the Montgomery Ward's building. The name escapes me right now. And for the record, Commissioner Douglas, I made our family, and my children were pretty little, get up at 5 a.m. to go down Hamlin Avenue to watch them implode the Montgomery Ward building, and I have photographs and a fire brick from the Montgomery Ward.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And you know what I'm just thinking too, I'm sorry for interrupting, but there was a program on PBS Channel 2 about University Avenue and how it was so viable back in those days when in the 20s and the before the streetcars, and when the streetcars came, and that was like the main avenue, and a lot of people worked in all of those buildings along the university corridor because they could get to it from the streetcars and everything, and then it went out to the state fairgrounds. But it's a whole program documentary on PBS. So if you all haven't seen it, maybe you can see it one day. It just talks about all these buildings, and I'm sure it talked about this building too.
Chair, point of order. We're a bit off topic right now, so
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, Commissioner Peroka, any comments on this potential nomination?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that this is an important piece of architecture and heritage for the city of St. Paul. It is in the heart of the city's urban zone of transition. It is also in a neighborhood that is experiencing its third wave of demolition. And as other commissioners have commented, this area has lost significant architecture, structures, and heritage by way of wards, the Prom Center, and Porky's. And so with the ongoing buyouts and transformation of the Midway neighborhood, with this third wave of demolition known as Phase 1 of the Allianz Field project, I think it's we're so lucky to have this building nominated potentially for the National Register, and I support its nomination 110%. Thank you.
Chair, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm muted. Commissioner, thank you, Commissioner Peroka. Commissioner Nelson, do you have any thoughts or comments at this point?
Nothing more.
Thank you. Commissioner McDonald.
No additional comments.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to run through this one last time to make sure we've got everybody's thoughts on record. Commissioner George,
No, thank you, I'm fine.
Commissioner Bazat.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas.
Nothing further.
Thank you. Commissioner Peroka.
No, nothing at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson
No,
and Commissioner McDonald.
No.
Okay, thank you. Then I will ask for a vote on our motion. So Commissioner George, what is your vote?
I vote yes. I vote yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Bazat,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Commissioner Peroka,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
yes,
and Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes as well. So our next item of business are the amendments to the HPC virtual meeting process and procedure. And those were included in our packet.
So this is George Gauze with staff. This is to consider changes to Heritage Preservation Commission Policy 20001. The last time the commission reviewed this was the April 20th, 2020 meeting last year, when our mayor declared a state of emergency and our governor declared a state of emergency and has put us all into virtual world. So we came up with the policy fairly quickly using what we knew at the time. And we've had some changes. So the city of St. Paul was, we were a Skype supporting business. We are no longer. The city is currently doing MS Teams, which is what we're doing now. But I thought, you know, if that changes again, maybe we need to just say virtual. So I went through and I made edits, so it just says a virtual call and a call-in number. And I will say, Commissioner Bazat gave me some edits on this, which were very helpful. Thank you. I did do a reference to our testimony policy, which was 17004. I felt it needed to get called out here. And just really just some general edits to what we're doing, just to make it a little clearer. So are there any questions?
Commissioner Bazat?
Just a comment. One of the suggestions that I made to staff was that not just including, in part one week before the meeting, not just a call-in number, but invite applicants via email with a call-in number and a web link. And so that would carry through everywhere, because people might be using their telephones, or they might, as I do, use their computers. So there should always be the web link included as well. The rest were just some changes, again, to sense, where instead of meetings will be conducted, or the meeting, one or the other, some of those changes. But I think it's really important to include the web link for folks who want to use their computer instead of their phone, or their phone croaks or whatever. That was the summary of the kinds of comments I would recommend, or kinds of changes I would recommend.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazat. Any other questions?
Chair, we should keep going through the roll call.
All right, I'll start then with Commissioner, let's see, Commissioner George, any questions for staff on this item?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bazat, any further questions for staff at this point?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Douglas?
I was trying to think of a question, but I can't really, except that has the mayor said when we will resume it all? Because I know the governor has changed some of the policies for COVID and, things are opening up. And I'm just wondering if you had any idea of when that will happen?
Chair, Commissioner Douglas, the mayor has put staff on remote until June 1st, 2021. It is assumed that City Hall and City Hall Annex will remain closed until June 1st, and that's when the policy and the closure will be reassessed.
Oh, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Perotka, any questions on this item for staff?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson?
No.
And Commissioner McDonald?
No questions.
Okay, so what do we vote on this? I'm not even sure.
You do, yeah. This is, so according to our ordinance 73.03, you do get to set your own rules to conduct your business. This is basically, you're adopting this policy. We'll attach it to the bylaws and record it with the city clerk.
Okay, so can I have a motion for adoption, a motion and a second for adoption of these bylaws?
This is Commissioner George.
Yes.
I would like to present a motion to accept the Heritage Preservation Commission policy number 20-001, the online virtual meeting policy and procedure, as presented to us today.
Thank you, Commissioner George. A second on that, Commissioner Bazat.
Commissioner George, I would like to slightly amend the motion to include some wording to the effect of as presented today with corrections and comments. Would that be acceptable?
This is Commissioner George, that's acceptable.
Then I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Again, we'll go through the vote. Commissioner George.
This is Commissioner George, yes.
Commissioner Bazat.
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Commissioner Perotka.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
And Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So those amendments to the bylaws are adopted. Then we have the HPC Public Notice Policy and Procedure number 21-001.
Yes, so we have never had in our ordinance a requirement to send an actual paper notice to neighbors of an adjoining property, notifying them of a public hearing or a CLG item or a city recommendation, any of the things we do, a legislative hearing item that we're commenting on. This is something that it's come up several times. It has been quite a kerfuffle with a past recent case. This is going to kind of be a two-pronged effort to actually go through and set a policy and procedure for doing written notice. It will be a letter. This letter will one page of the letter will have to be the formal basic city notice, telling the address, the applicant, how to reach into the meeting, how to do testimony, things like that. But then it also gives us an opportunity of attaching extra pages to it to do education and outreach. Talk about the commission, talk about what our mission is, what we're trying to do. So, and then the second part of this is we'll actually be opening up the ordinance and doing a text amendment that will put this in ordinance, so that we make sure everything's on the up and up, and we have this authority. We actually in the past have had people that did not want notice to go out and made sure that we weren't doing notice if we didn't have to. So it was a past developer that was knew that there was a opposition in the area. So so basically what this is going to be, this is projects that are going to be reviewed by the HPC, and this is really any project that's going to have an address. So this isn't just going to be public hearings. So this is going to be pre-applications. This is going to be CLG review, which we're actually bound by our contract, our CLG contract, to have public comment. If we have anything at legislative hearing that legislative hearing officer wants the commission to comment on, if we have any Section 106 projects, any city recommendations that we're making. We just made a recommendation about the George Latimer Central Library. Send notice on that. Things like that. We'll send notice 100 feet from the property boundary, and administrative staff does have a program that they can do this. We will get the property owner names from Ramsey County tax records. We'll also include appeals in that listing. If we do have an appeal of an HPC decision, we will be sending notice. Notice will be sent 16 days prior to the HPC meeting, giving everybody plenty of time to comment. We'll also send it out. We'll continue to send it out, notice out on the early notification system, ENS, which is a part of administrative rules of the city. That's 2 weeks prior to the meeting. And we will continue to publish the meeting agenda in the St. Paul Legal Ledger 10 days prior to the meeting. Now, the Legal Ledger versus Pioneer Press has been a little debate with staff back and forth. The reason why we're going with Legal Ledger is Legal Ledger is searchable, and it's a free search. Anybody can get on as many times as they want and search Legal Ledger. You cannot free search Pioneer Press more than 5 times. They put something on your computer, a cookie or something on your computer, and you would have to pay for it afterwards. And so that really became the defining characteristic between the two. That the whole purpose of doing notice is to make sure that it's notice that the people can receive. It's a free notice. You're not having to pay for it. And we're gonna be putting something on our city websites on how to get to the Legal Ledger, how to search there, things like that. So, but that's going to be for folks that are going to be outside that 100-foot boundary. We'll also be sending notices to the ward council office, district council office, and any neighborhood organizations that we know of in the area, so that we kind of formalize those communications that we haven't really had in the past. We haven't been sending them. We've sent them ENS, early notification system, of there's an agenda and here's what's on it, but this would be a little bit more detailed, that here is an application for the George Latimer Downtown Library, and this is in your ward, or this is in your district council, and inviting them to comment as well. So this is an effort just to be a lot more transparent than what we are. This is a continuation of our YouTube page with the meetings on it. just trying to make it so that folks can see what the HPC does. I think that's an important component for education and outreach. As we talk about equity in the city and we talk about equity on the commission, just making this that here's what we're doing, and these meetings aren't secret, they're not hidden. Here's how you join in, here's how you connect. So I hope to keep it simple, but informative. So.
This is Commissioner McDonald. I have a question.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner McDonald. I think we'll go through the regular roll call again, like we've been doing.
Sorry.
No problem. So starting with Commissioner George, do you have any questions for staff on this one?
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Bazat.
To address to George. Number one, there isn't anything, you talked about legal ledger, but this document only mentions the Pioneer Press.
Oh, I'm sorry. You should have gotten it. There should be an update that item number 8 will be publishing in the St. Paul Legal Ledger.
Okay, thank you. I
Sorry.
didn't get that. I was away from my email. And then
we started. I'll just take a minute. We did start with the Pioneer Press, and I everything was heading towards Pioneer Press. Everyone had talked about it. Executive committee, we had met and talked about it. We were all going towards Pioneer Press, and then we did a simple search and just tried looking for things and found out that you're limited to how many times you can get on Pioneer Press without actually hitting the paywall. So, which doesn't really make it transparent or equitable. So,
well, another thing about that is that even if you haven't hit the paywall with the minimum, most of the time you can't get in. So yeah, I think that's great. Another recommendation that I would have is that in looking at the HPC website on the city page, and maybe I missed it, but there's nothing on the page that contains the lists of our meetings with the agendas and the documents that mentions the ability to subscribe to the ENS. And I think that should be added there as well. Because if somebody's going to be interested in seeing what the HPC is doing, right there at that very top paragraph where there's an Ask St. Paul or something, or Ask HPC, there should also be a sentence about your ability to subscribe to this ENS. Because a lot of people don't know about it, so that you can subscribe to it and then pick what departments you want the information from. And then the other thing is that I would suggest as well that the agendas include the information that things like CLG nominations are also, I mean, you know, maybe there should just be a line about public business or whatever it is standard on our agendas so that people know that, you know, because this one, as I mentioned to the chair earlier, I didn't realize, and I'm sorry I missed your comments, Chair, that public testimony is welcomed on CLG nominations, and that totally makes sense, but it could be called out in every agenda. So just, I know it means adding a couple of other places, but you know, the agendas are pretty much boilerplate, so there's no reason that that can't be added just for always.
Sure.
I made a bunch of comments while you were talking. Oh, and then I did have a question about the distance from a property on which there is going to be hearings or reviews or whatever it is. Where did the 350 feet and 100 feet come in? Doesn't seem like much.
In St. Paul,
narrow corridor there for notice.
In St. Paul, we either do 100 feet or 350 feet. I don't really know the origin of that. When I was in Nashville, Nashville only did adjoining properties of different ownership. So it was really just your next door neighbor got notice. So I don't know the difference between 100 and 350 for a standard St. Paul lot. 100-foot notice will be about 20 to 25 properties, where 350 feet will be 80 to 85 properties.
Now, wait a minute. If lots are like 40 feet wide, that's only about 4 properties.
Well, it's a circle around the property
Yeah, okay.
of everything that it touches.
Why not just make them 350 both?
Well, we thought 350 was, so notice is $1 a piece. And if we're going from, you know, and I think about money maybe too much sometimes, but $20 to $25 per item on the agenda. And if we have 3 or 4 items and we meet twice a month or 3 times a month, as opposed to $80 to $85. And it was thought that 100 feet, we're hitting all the people that are the important folks to hit. You know, if it's a larger project like the Selbydale project or the project out at University Raymond, the larger lot is going to hit even more people with notice. So it felt like that those folks are getting the notice that are going to be subjected to whatever is happening that we're sending notice on. But we're also hitting the city council office, we're hitting the district council office, and we're hitting any neighborhood organizations that are in the area. So if they're going to do meetings and things, I know Summit University, which is most of the historic Hill district, you know, they like to do meetings on things. So there's a second opportunity for comments. So.
Yeah, okay, thanks. It just seemed kind of, it was a head scratcher on the distance thing, but otherwise, I really do recommend making those additions, one to the website and to the agenda, just in addition to all of these other things on here. So thanks for the answers. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Bazat. Commissioner Douglas, do you have any questions for staff at this point?
Yes, it was kind of, I thought Barb was asking it because I was a little confused with that 350 feet from the property line. George, does that mean that if you're 355 feet away from that property line, you won't get a written notice?
Yeah, you would not, right. And there's our administrative staff has a program that can draw the line around the property. Yeah. So.
Okay, I think I understand it. All right, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Peroka, do you have any questions on this one?
I don't. Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson?
No questions, thank you.
And Commissioner McDonald?
Yes, thank you. I'm a little bit vague here, but I believe in some of our projects in Minneapolis, where we are required to notify within 200 or 300 foot radius. Our client is the one who pays for those mailings. Is that going to be typical in St. Paul as well, or has that issue been discussed?
I love the idea.
Fees for what we do is an ongoing discussion. As you know, we've had a meeting in the past where we were going to take on some fees, and we didn't exactly get support from the residents of the city. So it's something that's always under consideration. I feel like that's a larger question for the leadership team of PED and the city if they want us to take on fees for what the HPC, the reviews. It's always one of those things that, the applicant should take that on, but also we don't want fees spent on administrative items. I want money spent on the properties. So.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to run through this one more time just to see if there's any further questions for our staff on this one. Commissioner George.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bazat.
I do have one more question for George. Would it be possible to include the fact that the commission asked about the fees being not for coming out of the department, but out of the developer or applicant. When you send a cover letter with the new policy and stuff.
To have another consideration of fees for the.
Just to note that the commission had discussed the issue.
Sure, I can do that. And if commissioners are interested in fees or want, maybe we could form a subcommittee and discuss fees. I'll warn you though, that we won't be able to use those fees for anything. They would go into a general pot for the city.
But they wouldn't come out of the PED budget, at least. We wouldn't be spending HPC money in that case. And
Sure.
yeah, I know fees. I was at that meeting.
Happy to do that. Yep.
Okay, anything further? Any further questions, Commissioner Bazat?
No, Chair, thank you.
Commissioner Douglas, any further questions at this point?
No further questions.
Commissioner Peroka, do you have any questions at this point?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson
No?
and Commissioner McDonald.
No, except to clarify that I was just asking the question. I'm not in favor of the applicants paying the fee for the mailing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, so then I guess we need a motion and a second for approval of this policy. Anybody want to make that motion? Commissioner Bazat?
You know, seriously, folks, get that unmute button going. I move approval of the HPC Public Notice Policy and Procedure number 21-001 as provided to the commission and with changes and comments incorporated from the commissioners as noted today.
Okay, is there a second on that?
Second.
Commissioner George, I'll second.
Okay, well, I think Commissioner Peroka beat you to that one this time, so
That's fine.
him. Okay, so any discussion on that motion? Deliberation? Commissioner George, you can jump in now.
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Bazat.
No.
Commissioner Douglas.
No.
Commissioner Peroka.
No, I have no comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yes, I think this is a marvelous, excellent, and much needed reform. So my thanks to staff for putting this together. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. Commissioner McDonald.
I'm a bit confused. No further discussion, but I'm in favor of the motion.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to add a comment on this, my thought on this, with this issue of charging the fees to the applicant. I guess I would not be in favor of moving that forward with this particular policy that we're talking about now, because I think we just need to think more about that. I mean, it's one thing to talk about it for the big developers, but it's something different when, you know, it might be a homeowner in Dayton's Bluff and, you know, that's just an extra expense. So I have some, I just think we would need to think that through before we even made a recommendation to the city that they should consider that. So that's my thought on that.
Chair, I withdraw the suggestion.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just run through just to make sure we're through with deliberation on this motion. Commissioner George, any further thoughts?
I have no other thoughts. Thank you.
Commissioner Bazat,
Nothing further, thank you.
Commissioner Douglas,
No.
Commissioner Peroka,
No.
Commissioner Nelson,
No.
and Commissioner.
No.
Okay, then I will call for a vote on that motion. Commissioner George,
Yes.
Commissioner Bazat,
Yes,
Commissioner Douglas,
Yes.
Commissioner Peroka,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
and Commissioner McDonald.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes as well. We're being so unanimous today. So our final item of business is the officer nomination committee. We need to form a committee for officers for the coming this new year now. And I think typically we have 3 people serving on that. Is that right, George?
Yes.
So I guess I'll start with, does anybody want to volunteer to be on the officer nomination committee? Commissioner,
whatever your name is. Bazat.
Commissioner Gauss, did you want, or not Commissioner Gauss? George, did you want to add something here? No? Okay, Commissioner Bazat.
I'll volunteer.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to join Commissioner Bazat? Yes, Mr.
I actually have a question for staff. Is there anyone currently on the commission who's going off the commission during 21?
Yes, Commissioner Wagner is going off. He has agreed to stay on until his replacement is appointed, but in a limited capacity.
Okay, because other times it's usually people who aren't going to serve anymore, but
Right.
just saying.
This is Commissioner George. I'll volunteer.
Thank you.
This is Commissioner Douglas. Madam Chair, what are the duties of the committee?
Well, having served on it one time, it's to identify candidates for the 3 offices. Talk to, solicit if there's people who are interested in serving. Solicit some input from people that might be interested in serving, identifying candidates, talking to those candidates, see if they're willing to serve, and eventually recommending a slate of candidates. It's not really a time consuming.
Right. How often does the committee meet?
Well, as I recall, I think maybe there were 2 meetings of a total of, it was a couple of years ago when I did it, but two meetings that totaled maybe 20 minutes on total. So
Right.
This
I will volunteer for the committee.
okay, great. So we have the committee. George, do we need to do anything more than this?
I don't think so. I'll reach out and maybe we can have a little meeting to talk about what you need to do. If anyone is interested in serving in some capacity, maybe they could just email me and I'll make sure it is forwarded to the committee.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner, like you have a question or?
I did have a question for staff. I know that although we could be really efficient about it, we could set up just a Zoom meeting, but the personal accounts only let you in for 40 minutes. would there be a way to piggyback on the St. Paul Microsoft Teams thing?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I can set something up and,
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, then I guess I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
This is Commissioner McDonald. May I interrupt for just a second?
Sure.
Would it be possible to get a 2021 meeting schedule like we have in the past? It's very helpful for
Oh, yes.
planning projects into my office.
yes. I will send one of those out to all of you.
Very good. Thank you.
I'm also going to send the bylaws and all of our policies and procedures. We've had a request for that, and I thought I'd wait until whatever happened today, so I can just put everything together.
Very good.
Just for your information, on our website where we have our information now, there is a schedule 2021 Heritage Preservation Commission meetings, and it does have the schedule.
Thank you.
Okay, so motion second to adjourn. Come on, somebody.
Commissioner
I
Douglas,
move to
I second to adjourn.
We all second.
Who made the
Yeah.
original motion?
I think it was Douglas, Roca, McDonald, everybody.
Where were you with all the other motions, folks?
Okay, so we're doing, so Douglas made the motion and Commissioner Proka seconded it, is that right?
You bet.
That's fine.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Anybody opposed to that motion? Hearing none. We are adjourned. We won't be meeting, as I understand it, on the 28th. So our next meeting, I believe, is February, not sure what the February date is, but. So everybody be safe and we'll talk to you then.
Thanks, folks. Good to hear from you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a